Damn, that was creepy. Hey guys, welcome to another Sleepy Hollow one-shot. And this was originally supposed to be a Halloween project before I actually realized that Abby passed away. So this is pretty much non-canon. Darkness Rising is probably my second attempt of making a creepypasta based on the Sleepy Hollow series. So I really tried my best with this. You'll see what the cover means soon enough, but damn, I really want to show the creepy side, since it was like a Halloween project. Alright, let's get this started, shall we? Alright, Darkness Rising. Don't know what Sleepy Hollow Fox does, except my OC's Gavin and Ichabod. Halloween was coming up, and to embrace the festivities, what better way to do it than with Sleepy Hollow? This time Gavin and Ichabod are on a camping trip, but during their break, they encounter a strange, dangerous phenomenon occurring throughout the city. This is a non-canon story, but does take place around Season 3. Joe is seen, and fortunately Pandora and the Hidden One won't be on here. Neither would Reynolds or Sophie, because I hate them! Let's begin my second attempt for a creepy Sleepy Hollow story. The night air was crisp, giving a hint that summer is ending and autumn is on its way. The sky was as black as tar, however the men did see numerous stars glowing like beacons. But that wasn't the only source of light, as a full moon casted its hue amongst them, and a small campfire illuminated the scene cracking fresh wood. Crickets and cicadas sang in the distance, and the smell of the fire brought back earlier memories of their own camping trips as Ichabod and Gavin discussed their childhood while they were roasting marshmallows with clean sticks. Have you roasted marshmallows before, Ichabod? No, not like this. The only time I consider roasting them was when they were sitting and expanding in a cup of hot cocoa. I could barely drink it. Right. I suppose you never actually had a s'more before either, huh? I beg your pardon? A s'more. You know, the most tasteful and the most popular camping snack? Don't tell me you never tried one. His remark made him more skeptical. You're really missing out. Okay, I'll show you how it's done. He opened his tote bag and drew out some Ziploc bags. One had unwrapped graham crackers, the other had a ton of small, flat pieces of chocolate. He took out 2 halves of crackers, took out 2 pieces of chocolate, and explained as he went when he stuck the chocolate on one cracker. He picked up this discarded marshmallow stick and held it over the fire till it was a light brown. He used the other end and removed the stick from the white gooey blob and placed the s'more on a napkin. Try it! Believe me, it's very irresistible, even on its first bite. Ichabod took it, and sure enough, he was right. I told you it's love at first bite. He smiled as he made himself one. He also explained the history behind that addictive treat, and his friend had never been more amazed. They devoured a few more, and before they knew it, it was getting late. At around 11, Gavin gave a cliffhanger on his long spooky story, as he recalled the hardcore horror movies. Sometimes they come back. Again. Ichabod was astonished how he experienced something so horrid as he finished the scene when Jules was murdered by a deck of death tarot cards of all things. Tarot cards. The weather was getting colder and the guys went into already made 2-room tent. Before they settled for the night, the corporal thanked him for spending time alone with him, as he'd been looking forward to this for a couple years. They hardly had the chance since they were preoccupied with the war. Ichabod appreciated as much as he did. He was actually proud of him of a few things he taught him, like hunting and just living on the land. The whole experience was not only to enjoy themselves, but Ichabod training Gavin almost the same way his father did. They said good night and they fell asleep almost instantly. On the next clear morning, the Freemason woke up early making breakfast for the 2 of them. Eggs were sizzling on a fire over the recently used campfire, and he was cutting up fresh venison. Seconds later, an unusually huge flock of birds flew across the sky. The squawks were so audible as if they were almost screaming. Soon, two of them were clashing at each other, tearing their bodies apart as they used their beaks and talons. The egrets fell, and he stood up. The fight ensued until one of them was dead. The strong one had a strange sneer as its eyes shined a red color. Then it flew away. With egrets, this was not their normal behavior. That bird was fighting one of its kind to the death. As he watched the flock pass by, he saw another spectacle. First, he thought it was an enormous cloud covering the sun, but it wasn't. It looked too violet for some odd reason. Hold on. Yeah. He thought his eyes were fooled by the rays, but he came to the conclusion that, like the egret's death, it was something more sinister. Quickly, he ran to the tent and shook Gavin's arm. Gavin! Gavin! Wake up! Oh, what is it, Ichabod? Are we under attack? Ugh. He could barely make out what his friend was saying, but he knew something was wrong as he kept telling him that they must leave, or so he thought. He tried to reason with him, but Ichabod grew more desperate. Together they emerged from the tent, and the cloud was looming closer. Not only that, but the forest became noisier. What's happening? As he looked at that thing in the sky. We should go! Now! Without hesitation, they ran as fast as they could, nearly tripping over twigs and limbs of trees. As they evacuated, it was as if the clatter in the cloud was catching up to them. It's closing on us! Where are we going? Anywhere but here. We must get to the lake. Exhausted, with the threat growing closer, they finally reached a clearing. The lake was only a few feet away. Gavin asked Ichabod why they'd be here, but he only said to trust him, and that it's their last hope. The wild animals' cries were almost deafening, and the cloud of darkness was inches away. Petrified, Gavin could only watch. Come! The witness shrieked as it reached for Gavin again. They had no choice but to dive. While they were underwater, they saw the cloud cover over them. Then the chaos seemed to be subsiding. They held their breath as long as they could until their lungs were feeling they could burst. First Gavin surfaced, then Crane. Aside from being extremely drenched and cold, they never had any aggression. It was as if they protected themselves from that mysterious threat that seems to affect those who are exposed to it. They seem to be safe, at least for now. They have been immune for the moment, but they were surrounded by demonic creatures and numerous chances they get infected. The two looked up at the sky, which now had a sinister violet-gray hue covering the sun. This was unlike any type of cloud color they've seen before. As soon as they were ready, they walked their soaked selves back to the campsite. It's quiet. Too quiet. We must be very discreet, Gavin. There's still a chance we'd become like them. He explains about what he saw with the egrets as well as the ominous cloud. He also figured they'd be possessed themselves if they ever get attacked. One bite or scratch could lead to an infection. Perhaps it's the same if we eat or drink anything that's not contained. Gavin understood all this. He wondered if Crane has dealt with a threat like this before in his time. Then they were shocked as they saw their site in shambles. The fire was toppled over, the bonfire was extinguished and wrecked, their tent had huge scratches, debris was all over the place. Reminded them of a similar incident from the Serilda of Abaddon. Ichabod told Gavin about their first monster after the Horsemen of Death. This must have happened while they escaped. The result with the dark cloud was undoubtedly real. Ichabod immediately cleared his head and suggested they should call their friends if they're safe. Luckily, they found their cell phones, discarded but nearly intact. He called Abby and he warned her of what's to come. This took place before Abby's death. However, Gavin called Jenny and she never answered. Figured she was sleeping. It was still early. Or worse, because it was already reached the city, it's obvious some civilians were infected. Abby and her team are working on getting them to safety, but one of the associates was unlucky. An aggravated person with glowing red eyes attacked him, and he turned into a demon himself in a matter of minutes. He can't possibly shoot the victims unless they absolutely have to. Hang on, Lieutenant. We're on our way back. We can settle this. Meet me at the archives. Be careful, Crane. How's Gavin? He's all right for now. Report to me at the archives. It's a good thing that Reyes knew about the supernatural when the Hellfire Club attacked the vault where it held the Aurora Borealis weapon Ben Franklin made. She had been very supportive to the team since then. When he hung up, the witness suggested travel lightly, pack up anything that's vital for their survival. They must hurry before the situation gets worse. Meanwhile, inside the camper, Jenny and Joe were sleeping soundly. She did hear her cell phone ring as Gavin called, but she just turned over after she ended it. They were completely unaware of the violet cloud covering the sun. The side window was left open, allowing the toxic air to seep through. She muttered, and her first tensed. Then she gradually woke up, and she wound up as a victim of the cloud's curse. Soon after, Joe followed. The scene was horrifying as the team saw citizens getting violent, smashing cars, infecting others, and just causing erratic chaos. They knew time was short as they could be next. The effects kept spreading immensely like a wildfire. They must put a stop to it. When they parked in front of the archives, Ichabod said they should take the tunnel entrance so it's safer. The front entryway could make them vulnerable. Thank goodness they managed to pack some flashlights during their rush. Ichabod led the way, and they became fully alert as they ventured through, till they saw light coming from inside a gray room. They climbed the ladder, and he slowly discarded the vent before they crawled in. Gavin replaced it, and they emerged into the library. The team also used to call this room the Armory, because it provided info on what the predicament was thanks to Ben Franklin. The former history professor hopes he has dealt with this case once before, and he desperately rummaged through his files. He knew where each volume was, so Gavin stood guard. He was skimming through a journal until his name was called. It was Abby. They went to her, and she assured them that she hasn't been affected. Yet. There was some grim news, though. It was getting worse out there. And if that wasn't bad enough, Ichabod couldn't find an entry of reversing the curse. However, Benjamin has dealt with this incident in the past. He said it wasn't to the extent as it is now. Instead, he discovered the unsettling method at a dark mass of all things. As a spy, he has unveiled the secret of turning innocents, even Whigs, against their own cause, brainwashing them. As if King George's warriors were expanding their army. In fact, it was actually his idea. All they did was breathe in the vapor or drink the water as the sermon proceeded from a crimson canister. This was to either make the influence stronger or just create more victims. He dropped the book as he reminisced the first demon officer he met, when he refused to kill Arthur and was ambushed by the colonel. He's been in many occults before, but none like this. He sat down and his body still quivered. Crane, what's wrong? He said it was something from the distant past and has become colossal. There's no cure. He seems to be very nervous as they couldn't find one. Crane, you will find the answer. You always do. We must not live in fear of it. I'm scared too. An agent was already infected and it can easily spread to other agents or civilians. We should never surrender to our fears. Then as she stated to him, he thought about the Onondagas. They can just be as vulnerable, but he's certain they can hold their own for a while. She had the idea that they could go to Chief Torgado for assistance and recruit his tribe as a means of defense. Don't forget about us. They looked up and Jenny and Joe walked in. Jenny! Joe! You're all right! Yes, we are. You will not stand a chance by yourselves. Come with us. Being the soldier he once was, Ichabod, on the other hand, didn't seem convinced. He had a feeling something wasn't quite right with the two. You'll help us. Certainly. But, she looked at Joe, who nodded. I must apologize and pay my own dues. For what? She opened her eyes. They were glowing red and her face scorned. For this! Miss Jenny, no! It was too late. Joe grabbed Gavin, forced him to turn around by binding his arms, kicked him in the back, causing him to falter. Before the witnesses had a chance, Jenny took out a pistol, aiming at them. Jenny! You're infected! Indeed I am. We have unfinished business to make up for. Gavin will be a formidable recruit. You'll never infect me! Joe took out a knife and held it up against her throat, almost piercing it by hair. You shall be used as a sacrifice. Wait! We might make an exchange for someone even better, more qualified. A witness. Wait! We might make an exchange for someone even better, more qualified. A witness. Chosen ones were so shocked they could barely move or speak. So what would it be? He looked around with his worrisome eyes. He couldn't bear one of his best friends surrender to them in order to save his life. He'd rather die than put them in harm's way, let alone let them fall prey to the curse. Just then Abby lowered her guard and made the offer, but Ichabod stepped in. Me! I will be the one your demon lord wants. It's already been arranged. She summoned 5 officers into the archives amidst the pandemonium. Take her away. Captured her and dragged her away in handcuffs and a cloth covering her mouth. Lieutenant! I told you I'm the one you want. Oh, you will be, Crane. As soon as we make the sacrifice, Gospodor will be pleased. He launched toward the officers, and they fought against him. During the melee, Abby, Jenny, Joe, and the remaining men were gone, while Gavin searched for a weapon. One of the guys held his left arm back and bit down hard. He dropped to his knees. Before the commander looked up, Gavin hit him squarely in the head with an iron arm brace, and stunning the officers with a bag of salt and slapping them across the head with the iron braces again. He retracted them and ran to Ichabod, who had stabbed his wound with a hunting knife. Ichabod! You're bleeding! Why? I'd rather bleed out the toxins. Must not get infected. Quickly, get some used clothing. I'll cover the wounds. Took out a worn shirt and handed it to him, pressed it directly on the wound and tied up the sleeves in a knot. It was almost like a cast, but it wouldn't be too absorbent for long. A huge quantity of blood was shown through. With his free arm, Ichabod tried to stand. He seemed to be lightheaded, and Gavin tried to place his right hand over his shoulder. We cannot stay here. Must find someplace safe. Cannot warn the Onondagas now. Barely coherent as they walked out of the archives using the main vacant hall. I'm sure there's a church nearby, as demons can't enter hallowed ground. Indeed, there must be one here. As they got outside, most of the demons were gone. It was unusually silent, no cars moving, no people chanting, though there was more devastation. Crane theorized they must have gone to Gospodor, which he translated as Latin for demon lord. Gavin begged him not to talk as it's sapping his strength. He was having a difficult time carrying him already. The further they walked, the harder it was to keep Ichabod up and Gavin's aching shoulder. His body was starting to drop, and moments later he collapsed to the pavement. Ichabod! You can't stay like this! He was beginning to lose consciousness as Gavin kept imploring him to stay awake. He even tried calling for help, but no one was coming. Then, as a glimmer of hope, a few men ran to them. One was wearing a reverend suit. Are you hurt? Here, we'll help you. No, not me. It's my friend Ichabod. He's losing a lot of blood. He needs help. The man silenced Gavin, and he and the 2 refugees carried him inside a church that had a wooden exterior showing a large cross above the doors. Inside had such a massive room and a beautiful design. Above the red carpeted altar, it shone a gold ark. The cathedral above it had a magnificent church with numerous steeples glowing. Blah. I'll show you that design later in the author notes. Can't seem to find it in a Google search, though. Gavin was so awestruck of the interior design. He hadn't visited many churches, but it really did stand out. He wondered if heaven could ever look this beautiful. He could go there. The Reverend took him out of his fascination as he urged him to follow the refugees to a back room on the left side. The place was completely covered in sleeping bags, and there were no windows, which made it very dark compared to the main hall. Gavin unzipped his tote and laid it out. Slowly they put Ichabod down, and he zipped it up with his arms hanging over it. His face was pale, and he groaned constantly. Gavin and the refugees helped to remove and discard the bleeding cast, replaced it with straps with lukewarm water. He said to him it'll eventually harden like a real cast, and they'll stop the bleeding. Gavin remained by his side and kept hoping he'll come around soon. He also prayed that they'll somehow save Abby, Jenny, and Joe before it's too late. It was near dusk, and candles were flickering and glowing in distant walls. In his own sleeping bag, Gavin was resting next to his friend. It had been a long day. Slowly, Ichabod's eyes began to flutter open. He looked around, wondering where he was. Then he saw Gavin sleeping soundly on his side. Assuring he was awake, he reached and touched his hand. Gavin's eyes immediately shut open, and he saw Ichabod. Ichabod, are you all right? Have you been infected? Oh, God. Gavin called for the Reverend, and moments later he examined him. He may have been weak, but he wanted to be completely sure. He did not want to have a slaughtering inside a house of God. He sprinkled some salt on his wrist. It had no effect. He told him to widen his eyes. They only had bags under them, nothing unusual. He took a cross from his pocket and showed it to him. He didn't falter. For the love of Jesus, he made it. He survived the infection. He's very lucky. They both took a sigh of relief at the pastor's words. Oh. Then he and a few refugees volunteered to give the duo something to eat. It was time for dinner, after all. As they ate, their strength gradually returned, even though Ichabod's left arm was still very sore. He was still willing to visit the Onondagas, but the pastor wouldn't let them leave just yet. Time went on. The sun was beginning to set, which could be a sign that there would be even more victims of the toxic cloud in Gospodar. The fears of what would become of their friends, especially Abby, never left their minds. The Reverend with saddened expression walked in. As they expected, more people and even a couple ravenous dogs were destroying everything in their sights. Gavin urged him to see that they can't stay here and let the situation get worse. They had to do something before the curse could be irreversible. Ichabod explained his plan. We are in a church, are we not? Then supposedly there may be holy water since we are on hallowed ground. It is our only effective weapon against Gospodar's legion. We must get Chief Trigado. He's an Onondaga shaman. He could use the holy water and perform a rain dance ritual. This will be used to a greater scale, and chances are everyone will be cured. Millions of lives are at stake. Eventually the cloud of darkness would affect more victims outside of Sleepy Hollow. You must trust us, Father. He's right, you know. Gavin never doubted his words. For a brief moment the pastor nodded. I see. You are very resourceful, my son, and courageous. Take this as an offering. He drew out a pint-sized glass of holy water. An angel was embedded at the top, and a cross was etched on the face. Please keep this sacred relic safe, and use it well. We will save this city, defeat the demon lord, and break the spell. We shall not get tainted by the darkness. You've my word on it. He made his signature bow to the pastor. Gavin grinned. He was always affectionate by it. They packed up and left the building, and the pastor wished them good luck and God bless. He'll pray for their success, and he had an inclination that Ichabod was someone to lead them to victory. He was the chosen one. Something more. As they went back, he hesitated. Gavin asked what was the matter. He said that someone is watching them, someone very evil. He asked if it was Gospodar, but Ichabod urged him to go inside with them. He must hurry to the village deep within the woods at Trout Lake, just a few miles from Ichabod's old cabin. The trek would be risky because of the numerous animals that are influenced by his curse, much like the egrets. They got their weapons ready, and his destination was the cabin itself. They made their way to the distant village, and it was getting darker by the minute. Even the intense stench of rotting bodies hung in the air. They had to be careful not to step on them or make themselves known. They fought off a few creatures, some rodents, a wolf or two, and ambushed by a grizzly. Ichabod shot his crossbow, but the bolt bounced off. The village was nearby, and they kept driving it to their haven. Just then an array of arrows pierced its side and fell to the ground like a thud made by a tree. Ichabod thanked the warriors in their language, and they persuaded him to go to Torgado. They followed them, looking over their shoulders in case there's another attack. Various carcasses were laid on the ground, each slain nearly the same way as that bear. Several tribesmen were patrolling the area while others were desperately making weapons. They entered the center teepee with the chieftain in distress. "I'm glad you made it, Zorn Crane and Battlehawk, but we cannot hold off the threat for too long. Everyone is in famine. We're drastically low on supplies and we kept being attacked. Worse still, those who are inflicted they won't survive and become themselves again. We do not have much time. Ruby Wolf, there, no, there is hope." Took out the glass the Reverend gave him. "You must perform the rain dance. The holy water could be used to reverse the infection upon those who make contact. With or without Gospodor, the city may recover. Time is precious. We must not waste it. Gavin, stay with them and help them prepare the ritual. I'll save Lieutenant and the others." "Whoa, no way! I can't let you go alone. It's me he wants. I haven't submitted yet, but I'm the only one who can stop him and save her. Do not grieve for me. I shall return. Gospodor cannot infect the remainder of Sleepy Hollow, nor beyond." As a final tip, Torgado mentioned that he should go to the highest point when dealing with the Demon Lord. "Hurry now, Soren Crane. Our fate's in your hands." As if he hadn't heard it countless times. For protection, he covered himself with salt and he left. He ventured back to the cabin fully armed. He had a feeling that Abby may be imprisoned at the police station she used to work at with Race and Frank. Little did he know someone was watching him. It was Jenny, leading an army of infected animals. He looked behind him as he heard a rustle, and he saw many pairs of red eyes staring at him. "There he is! The witness! Where have you been, Crane? Trying to reverse the infection?" "It's Jenny. Trying to save my sister from certain death? Have you forgotten what she had done to me over the years?" "Miss Jenny, you do care for your sister. The infection is poisoning your mind." "Enough talk, Crane. It's you we want." The animal snarled. She pointed to him. They gave chase. Kept running as fast as his legs could carry him until he reached a car. He immediately started up, but unbeknownst to him, Brainwashed Cat leapt on the roof before he drove off. Joe watched the entire scene from the inside of the cabin through a window. As he drove away, he signaled to Jenny on his walkie-talkie that we got him before where they want him. He was heading to the police station to save her. He passed many animals as well as civilians when he reached the main road, all keeping their eyes on the van. They all knew where he was heading next. Sure enough, he immediately hit the brakes as soon as he got to the station. But just as he got out, the cat leaped on him, nearly scratching his face. He managed to toss off the stray feline and it hissed with its eyes shining brighter than ever with its fur sticking up. Then before he leapt on him again, he shot it with a crossbow. It went down like a sack of sand. The peace didn't last long. Another van was speeding toward him with Joe, Jenny, and a few officers in tow. Ichabod headed straight in and hurriedly searched for Abby's cell. The place was wrecked, but empty of occupants. Kept locking the thick metal doors as he went, trying to keep the infected cronies at bay. Passing a few desks, he saw a staircase leading down. He took it, and a few cells surrounded him. The hall was dark, and he kept whispering her rank. She woke in one of them, and the flashlight kept passing her. She slowly rose and saw Ichabod instead of a brainwashed person checking on her. "Crane! Crane!" "Lieutenant, I'm here. I'm going to get you out." "Crane, no! It's a trap. You must leave. They want you here to rescue me." She said that they were using him as bait. They knew he was desperate, and that's why she was sent here. It's like they have a collective consciousness. They all think alike. That's how their master in the infection works. They've been watching him all along. He was still anxious to get her away, but he also told her about the plan with the Onondagas. It was as if they were hearing everything. I knew you'd be here. Crane! Jenny! Don't shoot him! Oh, I'm not gonna shoot him. I'll make him one of us. She signaled the henchmen to force him to surrender as they surrounded him. Guns were pointed, and he had no choice but to escape now. You've been following me, spying, all because you want me to submit to the curse. I didn't want you to become infected. Our Lord Gaspador did. She gave Joe the knife he used earlier. Knelt and sliced open the cast, and a huge red and purple bruise was shown on his upper arm, where the teeth marks were. It was nearly close, and he persuaded. In exchange for Abby's life, then, you shall remain as our Lord's servant indefinitely. You too were a soldier. Now you can put these skills to great use. We will spare her life if you're willing to join us in our revolution. He stabbed his upper arm, reopening the wound. Blood began to streak down once more. With a horrific grin, he ordered to conceal the wound after he bit hard. His free arm, Ichabod tried to push him away, but his grip was strong. Pain was almost unbearable, and all Abby could do was watch in terror. Joe wiped the blood away from his mouth after he released himself. The wound had more deeper teeth marks, and the officers immediately recovered it. Ichabod's body was trembling from the pain, and his sight became blurry, then clearer, when somehow his upper arm gradually lessened in torture. In fact, it was getting cooler, stronger, flimsier. Left just a tingle, and he began to feel more relaxed. No longer had any pain nor fear. He actually was feeling better. As the darkness coursed through his veins, he had visions of everything concerning the infection. The egrets, the cloud, the numerous animals, the chaotic civilians. His comrades Jenny and Joe inviting him to become one of them. A brief distorted glimpse of the black mass itself from his past with Franklin. The enticing atmosphere filled him with a pang of pleasure. His heart began to race, and his breath was heavy as he recollected his strange flashbacks. His eyes turned as dark as the cloud, and his pupils slowly turned a glimmering red. He seemed to be smiling. This is what he wanted. As a witness, he was finally fulfilling his destiny for over 230 years. At last, now was someone to embrace it with. The demon Lord Gaspador was awaiting him, even though he hadn't seen him yet. This was his true purpose. He no longer cared for his friend's well-being or fighting for his country, as he felt he had already succeeded. Slowly, he rose to his feet. So did the others, their heads bowed. He spoke in a vehement, urgent voice. I am now Gaspador's loyal herald. He has summoned me to fulfill his destiny, as I have mine. Bring me to him. Done. Despite Abby's pleas for him to snap out of it, they escorted him. The water tower was looming in the distance. Trees were surrounding it, and further ahead was a small patch of sand next to a deserted road. The other side, there was a small ranch house with a massive porch, insignia of a pentagram, 2 curving horns, 2 tall torches with skulls, elaborate red canister. Gasper gazed into it. It had shown that Ichabod was now one of them and is willing to meet him. The demon lord was muscular and had burnt orange skin, a pair of thick horns. Basically the demon that you saw in the image. His elongated tail wrapped around his lap as he gleamed. They have found him, the chosen one, Ichabod Crane. It can't really sound like that demon from legend. He is now finally coming to us. He will witness our triumph as we spread the darkness throughout the world. Our work in Sleepy Hollow is nearing its end. Within an hour, the darkness will consume all. Hail, Gaspador!
He looked up and Jenny and Joe marched up to the side. "Ah, Jennifer and Joseph, you have brought the witness here, I trust." "We have, my lord," said in unison. Ichabod emerged and saw his ruler at long last. It was a stunning sight, and all the things he saw and heard were true as he finally met him. "Come forth, Harold." He walked toward him and greeted him as he knelt and bowed down low. "I am honored to make your acquaintance, Lord Gospodar. We now have the chance to finally meet. Yes, I've heard a lot about you. The honor is mine. You two have done well. Prepare for the ceremony. I shall gather our brethren here." He started at the sky and raised his arms. His eyes turned white as they fizzled. "Everyone, come to where I am. The witness is here with us now. Let us finish our mission and embrace our achievement. Come now and show us your resolve." As he made the announcement, every person he infected looked over and instantly marched toward his perch. The crowd gathered in a matter of seconds, as every man, woman, and child worshipped him. Jenny and Joe were together at the front of the large audience. Sitting on the glider, they watched until the ground was barely seen. Their eyes glowed in delight and cheered for them. Together they rose. "You are all now witnesses for the conclusion of our cause. The chosen herald, Ichabod Crane, has been brought to us. With his resolve as well as yours, we will let all of mankind embrace the darkness the world over. Our mission is nearly in completion, but now we must leave this God-forsaken city. We have achieved our goal as we have found the witness, and he shall fulfill his destiny with us. We will rise." A large quantity of people roared. It was complete pandemonium that they weren't aware of the storm brewing over them. There was a subtle rumble of thunder, and a tiny droplet landed on Ichabod's nose. He was so consumed he hardly noticed. Then it immediately started to pour. It was almost like a monsoon. Everyone started to cry out as they were being exposed to the holy water. "Togado has done the spell!" They held their bodies in agony. It was almost like bathing in acid. It eventually affected Jenny, Joe, Ichabod, and Gospodar. "Ugh! How can this be?" He fell back underneath the roof, and Ichabod was still exposed as it burned beneath his skin, particularly where the infection site was. Then everything was silent except the constant downpour. Strangely enough, after the intense pain, it kind of felt refreshing like any other shower. First to come to was Crane just as his hand was twitching. He was soaked but renewed. Checked his body and everything was healing, even his sore left arm. And he realized what happened. Immediately went to Jenny and Joe. What is this?" "Storm cured us." Civilians rose up and they wondered what they've done and where they've been, completely oblivious to everything except for him, since he has eidetic memory. Jenny and Joe even wondered where that demon went. Looked at the porch and he disappeared, the canister with him. "I have to find Gospodar. He could restart the darkness. Miss Jenny, Master Corbin, Chief Lieutenant, watch out for creatures who'd be infected still, and gather up the Onondagas. Going after the demon." It was rare that he said something this serious. There was no way they could say no to this. They knew what he had to do. "Good luck, Crane. You're gonna need it." "Right, Miss Jenny. Master Corbin, post haste." Began to stop. As the rain began to stop, he remembered what Torgato said about the highest point in Sleepy Hollow, which happened to be a mile away, the water tower. His body sizzling, Gospodar managed to the top where he began to reactivate the canister using a few bolts coming from his fingers. A storm was building up as Ichabod climbed to the tall ladder, nearly slipping at almost every step. Jenny and Joe parked their vehicle in front of the precinct and rushed inside. She braced for the worst. They reunited, for now, at least since Ichabod's defeats Gospodor once and for all. She'll use the master key. Abby immediately hugged Jenny. They were finally reunited as sisters should be. She did grow worried for Crane when he told her about his showdown with the Demon Lord. He headed to the Onondaga village, which was being swarmed with menacing beasts. With his purgatory sword, Gavin managed to fight a few of them while the tribe were using arrows and axes. Even Trigado and his advanced joined the fray, but it was starting to get too much for them. The trio showed up at the nick of time, causing them to fall and some of them to even run away. The trio too were glad to see them, but their chances of survival grew infinitesimal since they were running severely low in supplies. The infected cronies were endless. Mr. Crane must stop Gospodor soon, and it'll take too long to perform the ritual again. Lightning ripped across the sky and everyone evacuated, with Gavin and the gangster in the chieftain's tent. Trigado prayed to the Great Spirit for success and everyone did the same. Ichabod, whatever you gotta do, you better do it quickly. Finally made it up to the deck. Heard Gospodor speaking a foreign chant. Whatever it meant, he knew he was going to unleash the dark cloud again. Can't let himself be driven either. This is his only chance of redemption. Demon Lord! Gospodor! Ichabod Crane, how happy I am to see you again. Gospodor, I'm here to defeat you and to eliminate this threat you've created. You've driven my friends to blind hatred, to worship a deity that wants to dominate every living thing in the world. This all ends now! Neither of the men were backing down. He left the canister in a worn-down crate facing an open window. I shall take you on, Ichabod. You would rather be a witness for the city's demise and yours. They clashed each other hand to hand, fists were flown. When finally made contact square across the face, Gospodor just laughed at him. Crane held his right fist in agony. It was as if he didn't feel the punch at all. He had to find another way, so unsheathed his sword while he picked up his dark scepter. They did close combat. While he made swift moves, Gospodor matched with unsurmountable strength. The demon pushed him away as he activated his staff and Crane dodged the projectiles. The impacts were destroying the tower and the storm continued raging. He could barely keep his balance until the gusts were the torrents of rain. The devil stayed rock steady. Closed in on Ichabod and grabbed him by the collar of his overcoat, threw him clear across the tower. The fall was just as deafening as the thunder itself. He did, however, roll his eyes and saw the canister, and Gospodor grabbed him by the throat. He was beginning to lose vitality as he gazed onto the incubus's face. Flashes as it even made it more terrifying. Typical human, a weak and broken vessel. How pitiful. But a demon is more powerful, immortal. Refusing to drink the water, he turned his face and kept his lips shut. Gaspard grabbed his chin and cheeks as he forced him. He tried to kick him, but his legs kept slipping. His arms were too painful to move along with the rest of his body. I'm offering you one final chance to be at my side, Ichabod. To rule the world and create an Eden with me. Serve by my side. His eyes, those hypnotic, exotic eyes as they gleamed in the dark room. As Ichabod succumbed to them, he let him go. I must. He slipped into a trance as Gospodor put the tab against his lips again. The storm got more brutal and numerous lightning bolts ripped the sky open. Faster and brighter they were, until a huge bolt struck the tower. The entire place destroyed the canister, shattering into pieces. Big bang was heard from the village. Sword and Crane. What the hell just happened? Trigado, was he struck by lightning? All he did was nod. She immediately stood up and encouraged the others, leaving the chief behind. They headed toward the outside of the tower in their van. The roads are empty, so it should be easier to get to the tower.
I hope we're not too late to save Crane. No, if we get there fast enough, we should be able to save him. We have to be there within 5 minutes. He said he'll come back. He promised he would. They've arrived thanks to Abby's expertise. She was the first to run out just as soon as she parked. Jenny and Joe followed. They all ran up the ladder as fast as their feet can carry him, missing every step almost. Finally reached the top and they survived the damage. The canister was blown. Gosper's body was nothing but a crispy corpse. And Ichabod, Crane! Crane! Joe volunteered to assist her with CPR. Through strenuous training in EMT, they knew what they had to do. They did all of that. She repeated the process while Joe kept Ichabod's nostrils shut as his head tilted back. Everyone kept encouraging him to come to. The situation seemed hopeless. First saw Abby leaning over him, then Joe, Jenny, and Gavin. He wondered, did we do it? Did we make a difference? Yes, we did. We all did. The lightning bolt finished the job. He looked at the unrecognizable pile of roasted flesh. Well, I guess God has done his work. It made sense since the water tower's exterior is made of steel, considering it to be a lightning rod. Water did conduct electricity, which made a tremendous strike. Because of the elements clashing with each other after Trigado conjured up the storm, using the church's holy water. Most of all, Gospodor was there. Let's go home, Crane. Gavin and Ichabod resumed their trip. They just finished climbing up the steepest hill they found. By the time they reached the top, they watched the glorious sunset. Ichabod encouraged the corporal to do it. He had to hurry. He wasn't sure why until now. Exhausted, they sat at the summit. It's definitely worth the challenging climb. They had never seen the sky so clear and majestic. Another day was coming to a close, but hopefully not by another moment of chaos. You been up here, Ichabod? I have not, but I wish I could have visited here more often. They began to relax and he wondered how long they'd see the sun like this. Gavin wished it stayed still so they could gaze at that marvelous sight forever. No wars or death tearing them away from it. If only that would happen. It's so beautiful, isn't it? Oh yes, Gavin. Beautiful. And mysterious. There are still so many things left unknown about the magnificent heavens, where everything and everyone is at peace, which is what we must do to keep it. He became pensive since he mostly knew about war throughout most of his life. Well, at least we have this to cherish, knowing that the danger is past, at least for now. Looking at him at that moment, so wise and ancient, Gavin wished he would someday finish what he started during the Revolution, put his violent past behind him. He hoped that this time would come in full circle, but without resulting in an apocalypse or his own death. He wondered if there ever was a place where he and his friends would reunite without any type of danger holding them back. But until then, they must fight for their cause, for everything he stands for. And one day, leave this world behind with the memories and history of restoring order to Sleepy Hollow. I suppose it was a nice ending to this horror fic. I wish the same, even though Abby and Joe are no longer with us. I have seen Sometimes They Come Back Again, and it was no doubt hardcore. It was a movie based off of some characters Stephen King created, so you know it's bound to be intense. Also, I haven't had s'mores or even venison in ages. Wish the latter is illegal to sell. Okay, yeah, the scene with the dark cloud and the infected victims was a concept from Dragon Ball Z Scarlet Jr. saga, and an interesting scenario, but it quickly became a sack of crap. The idea of the Hellfire Club was from a documentary I used to see about the evolution of Satan and Hell and the history behind them. Well, Hell, Devil's Domain. And it's true that Ben Franklin didn't attend these. Also, there were some references to a few episodes. Not too good with complex designs, but the interior of the church is similar to an image I saw in a YouTube video. It described how dancing magic sound like and featured a heaven save point. Not sure what the image is called, but it was very intriguing. Gospodor is actually translated as Lord in Latin. The design was similar to the darkness from the arcade movie Legend. The OC kind of reminded me of the charismatic reverend I saw in that documentary. I guess it made sense with the significance of the water tower and how it was struck by lightning. As always, I hope you all like this Halloween story, which it was at the time. So, I really want season 4 to be promising, even though it'll be set in Washington, and there's a rumor that Henry Parrish may return. Which, it was very promising. Great comeback. So, until next time, sleepyheads. Sorry for the long one-shot, but hey, it had to be done. Not sure what my next project would be. Until then, this is the Ecron Writer signing out, and hopefully I won't be in loads of trouble when I play this. So ciao everyone, and let's hope for a season 5.